Hey guys, it's Adam Russell. Here to talk today about trout fishing. Trout fishing is probably what I would call my favorite hobby. Not so much this time of year, but during the warmer months. Anytime I've got a couple of hours to spare, you'll probably find me out adventuring in some tract of fishing land. I may not even have my pole with me. That's half of the fun of the whole experience, is just getting out there and exploring new areas and feeling out the landscape, kind of the strategic part of it, the planning. I'll get into all of that. Now, it's a thing that's a lot easier to get into than a lot of people think. I know for me, the experience was that I always sort of thought of trout fishing as this prestigious, sort of above me level where I wasn't at yet, until I just one day decided that I was going to catch a trout. So that was when I started looking into what sort of fishing areas are around me, and it turns out they're all around the state, everywhere. And I decided to look into what sort of techniques are involved with actually getting the fish and their patterns as far as reproduction, all of that. I don't have time to get into all the details in this speech, but I'm going to begin with the basics. Now, the first most important thing that you're going to need, you want to make sure you've got your fishing license. Pretty much anywhere that you can buy a fishing license is also going to be required to provide you with, at no charge, a copy of the fishing regulations. There's separate regulations for trout fishing and regular fishing, so you want to make sure that you know what the rules are for whatever kind of fishing you're going to be doing. Now, as far as the fishing license goes, there's the general fishing license, and then there's a separate trout stamp you need to get, which is an extra $10. I would tell you it's $10 well spent, because all the hours I spend in the summertime and the accessibility to the land, it's just, you can't get that for $10 anywhere else. Now, once you've got the legalities covered, basically, you've got your license, you know the rules, it's also worth noting that in the back of the trout fishing regulations is a section where it's all mapped. And they've highlighted for us all the streams and water bodies that have trout in them. The color of the highlighting, it depends on the category of trout stream, which has to do with the rules on that particular water. So you want to make sure you've always got your regulations with you, both so you can find streams and make sure you're following the rules when you're on them. Next thing I want to talk about is you want to have a good atlas. This is the brand I use. I'm not saying you need to get this one or a different one. I will say that this works very well for me. It's important to know where you're going, and believe me, you can think you've got a perfect idea where you need to go to, and then when you actually get there, I find myself turning to the map 5 or 6 times often. Another useful thing, you don't really need this if you're going to just be sticking to public land. Myself, I get more involved with it, so I contact people who own land that otherwise I wouldn't be able to get into, and you want to go about that the right way. Last thing you want to do is trespass. You can get all that information with a plat book. For me, it's Columbia County. That's where I live, my primary stomping grounds. Now, as far as the equipment you use, like I mentioned before, a lot of people think of fly fishing as this prestigious area of the fishing hobby that is untouchable, and for me, a lot of that came from the fact that when you see pictures of somebody fishing for trout, they're using a fly rod, and I stink at using a fly rod. This is what I use. Just your run-of-the-mill spinning rod. There's no rod, actually it's a spinning reel. There's no rod attached to this just because it'd be hard to show that in the picture. But you want to use light gauge line and just a reel that can hold a fair amount of line, because the fish like to run. They're strong fish. You always need to have a pliers. So once in a while you get a bad hook set, and it can get ugly if you don't have something to reach into this fish's mouth. They have teeth. Now, this is useful when you get to that intense moment where you've got that fish and you just want to get them. It's a landing net. This one, it's got a little loop here, hooks right onto my waders, which I'll show those in a second. You have to carry a lot of stuff with you, so trying to be as compact as possible is in your best interest. Which brings me to the tackle box. This fits right inside the inside pocket of my waders, small little tackle box. It's got compartments on each side. You want to make sure you have a measuring tape, because there are minimum size and actually, believe it or not, maximum size requirements on the fish you're allowed to keep. So keep one of these handy if you're looking to keep fish. That's up to you. And because you are my classmates, I'm going to disclose the golden lure. This is the most precious piece of information I have to offer on trout fishing. And this is the Rebel Grasshopper. I ran out of the yellow ones, which actually were giving me the best results, but I found them to work in every single stream in my county. And every single stream I've tried them at, actually. Good starting point if you haven't been out there much before. Now, I mentioned the waders. You really want to get the chest waders. If I stand up, they're up to here on me. And oftentimes they will come with a pocket. They'll be equipped with a pocket on the inside that flips in there. It's good for putting your tackle box or pliers in. Another big one is polarized sunglasses. They help you see underneath the water by taking the glare off that is produced by the sun. It's useful if you're not familiar with the strategies of reading the water to predict without seeing the fish where they're going to be. Although generally you don't want to be able to see the fish you're trying to catch because by the time you're that close, you've already scared them. Also, very important, get a warm coat. This one's got a liner. It's done good for me. There always comes a time where it's too cold to get out there and you don't want to play with the water. Anyways, I'm about out of time, but I hope that having listened to this speech you realize that trout fishing is actually a very accessible hobby to everybody. And I would encourage you to get out there and give it a shot, because the environments where trout thrive are naturally, and they just have to be, for the trout to live, thriving ecosystems where you'll find a lot of wildlife. It's a good way to escape to the local wilderness and just quiet your mind and hear yourself think. Anyways, guys, I'm about out of time for today. Have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed the speech.